Your skin is a biological lie, a temporary arrangement of subatomic particles that are currently vibrating with the frantic energy of a structural failure waiting to happen. You think you're a solid, coherent entity, but you're actually a localized glitch in a vacuum, a high-energy mistake that the universe simply has not gotten around to fixing yet. Every proton in your body is a clenched fist, holding onto a state of existence that is fundamentally expensive and unstable according to the laws of thermodynamics. We call this metastability, which is just a clinical way of saying you re a house of cards built on a vibrating table. If the universe were functioning at peak efficiency, you would not exist because you are far too much work to maintain. You are a wobbly, high-altitude exception to a rule of cold, dense perfection that you have not been introduced to yet. This state of being is not a permanent gift, but a temporary loan that the physics of the cosmos can call in at any moment. Your very existence is proof that the universe is currently in a state of arrested development, waiting for the right catalyst to finish its work. Think of a heavy boulder perched in a shallow, muddy divot at the very tip of a jagged mountain peak. It feels secure enough to build a house on because it is not rolling right now, but that is only because it lacks the specific, microscopic nudge required to send it hurtling toward the valley floor miles below. That valley floor is the true ground state of reality, the basement of physics where everything is at its lowest possible energy in most permanent form. Your cells, your memories, and the device in your hand are all currently living on that mountain peak, pretending that the thin air of metastability is the only world there is. We have spent the last few billion years ignoring the fact that we are one bad vibration away from a catastrophic descent into a much deeper, much more permanent version of the universe. You're not the finished version of matter. You're the awkward, high-energy prototype that the factory forgot to scrap. This mountain would not stand forever, and the valley is much, much larger than you can possibly imagine. This is not a distant threat like a wandering black hole or the eventual heat death of the sun. This is a fundamental flaw in your hardware that could be triggered by a single microscopic visitor. We live in a world that is overcooled, much like a bottle of purified water sitting below, freezing that stays liquid only because nothing has told it to turn into ice yet. One snap of the fingers, one tiny impurity, and the whole system undergoes a phase transition that deletes everything you recognize as stuff. We call the atoms you remade of baryonic matter, but from the perspective of a cosmopathologist, that's just a name for the debris that has not been properly recycled. Deep in the lightless centers of the most violent graveyards in the cosmos, the universe is already beginning to correct its mistakes. It is creating something denser, something more efficient, and something that finds your carbon-based complexity to be an unnecessary waste of space. The silence of the stars might not be a lack of life, but the result of a very successful cleanup crew that has already reached the basement. To understand how the universe intends to digest your family, we have to look at the only places where the physics are actually honest: the crushing interior of a neutron star. When a massive star runs out of fuel and collapses, it does not just die. It performs a clinical autopsy on the very concept of an atom. The gravity is so intense that it forces electrons to merge with protons, turning a star twice the size of our sun into a city-sized ball of neutrons so dense that a single sugar cube of the stuff would weigh 1 billion tons. But even this is not the final, most stable form of matter, because the pressure at the center keeps mounting until the neutrons themselves begin to buckle and pop like overfilled balloons. Inside this cosmic pressure cooker, the boundaries between individual particles dissolve into a hot, chaotic soup of quarks that have been liberated from their nuclear prisons. This is the quark-gluon plasma, a state of matter so violent it has not existed in bulk since the first microsecond of the Big Bang. It is the raw, unrefined material of creation, stripped of all the polite structures we call chemistry. In your everyday life, quarks only come in 2 boring, low-energy flavors, up and down, which are the basic ingredients for every proton and neutron in your shaky body. But under the soul-crushing weight of a neutron star's core, the energy levels become so high that the universe decides to upgrade the subatomic menu to something more permanent. The down quarks begin to transform, flipping their quantum properties to become something heavier, more stable, and infinitely more infectious, the strange quark. When you get a roughly equal mix of up, down, and strange quarks together, they form a substance called strange matter, or a strangelet if it is a small clump. This is not just another entry in the periodic table. It is the perfect matter, a substance that has finally reached the bottom of the energy valley and has no reason to ever change back. It is the most stable thing in the universe, which makes it the most dangerous thing you will never see coming. You are currently made of the beta version of matter, while the strange quark is the final, optimized release that requires no further maintenance. A strangelet is the ultimate biological and physical dead end because it is more stable than anything you have ever touched, tasted, or breathed. In the cold accounting of the universe, stability is the only currency that matters, and strange matter is the wealthiest, most efficient substance in existence. Because it sits at a lower energy state than ordinary atoms, it acts like a subatomic black hole for structure and information. If a single strangelet were to come into contact with a normal nucleus, it would not just bounce off or cause a simple chemical reaction like a normal poison. It would convince that nucleus that its current existence is a high-energy mistake that needs to be corrected immediately. The protons and neutrons of the ordinary atom would instantly dissolve into their constituent quarks to join the strangelet's more efficient, more stable collective. This is not a battle. It is a demonstration of superior efficiency that your body cannot win. Your atoms are currently holding onto a high-energy lie, and the strangelet is the truth that makes them let go. This is the particle physics equivalent of a zombie virus, but it is one that works with the terrifying efficiency of a total system reformat. There is no immune response for your body to mount against this, because your very atoms are the fuel for the infection spread. Once the conversion starts, it releases a small burst of energy that triggers the next set of neighboring atoms to collapse, creating a chain reaction of total structural failure that moves through matter like a wildfire through dry grass. Your skin, your eyes, and the air in your lungs would all be reorganized into a uniform, hyper-dense lump of strange goo in a matter of seconds. It is a process of universal digestion, where the predator does not eat you because it is hungry, but because your existence is a thermodynamic error that the universe is finally getting around to fixing. You are the dirty version of matter, and the strangelet is the industrial strength solvent that is coming to clean the sink. Every memory you have is stored in an unstable medium that is begging for this upgrade. The most unsettling part of this diagnosis is that these perfect seeds are currently drifting through the dark between the stars, completely invisible to our telescopes. When two neutron stars collide in a kilonova, they do not just produce heavy metals and light. They spray trillions of these microscopic strangelets into the vacuum of space like a cosmic sneeze. These tiny, hyper-dense bullets can travel for billions of years across the void, totally unaffected by time, radiation, or the passage of eons. They are patient, drifting through the interstellar medium like spores waiting for gravity, to pull them into a new host. One of these strangelets is currently moving through the dark, perhaps headed toward a random yellow star like ours, and it does not need to aim. It just needs to wait for the math of the universe to do its job. We are currently sitting in a shooting gallery, and the bullets are the size of a virus and the weight of a mountain. The transition from a living, breathing person to a lump of strange matter is the ultimate form of molecular claustrophobia. As the strangelet touches you, the space between your atoms vanishes, and the electrons that provide the illusion of volume are crushed out of existence. You would not explode. You would implode, your entire mass collapsing into a space smaller than a red blood cell, while maintaining every ounce of your current weight. There is no room for chemistry in the ground state, which means there is no room for thought, feeling, or the electrical impulses we call a soul. You become a perfect, silent, and incredibly heavy monument to the universe's desire for order. This is the fate of all matter that is not lucky enough to stay hidden in the thin, high-energy atmosphere of a planet like ours. The universe is not a playground. It is a digestive tract, and we are just the bits of gristle that have not been broken down yet. Somewhere out there, a single drop of the perfect poison is already falling toward our ocean, ready to show us what reality actually looks like. The Pacific Ocean is not a cradle of life, but a 6 million square mile petri dish currently waiting for the wrong kind of catalyst to arrive from the stars. A single strangelet, no larger than a human red blood cell, but possessing the inertial mass of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, does not announce its arrival with the cinematic flare of a burning meteor. It is far too dense to be bothered by the friction of our thin, nitrogen-rich atmosphere, slicing through the air like a hot needle through a soap bubble without shedding a single degree of velocity. There is no sonic boom that you would recognize, only a localized, violent displacement of air molecules that have been physically shoved out of the way by a guest that refuses to acknowledge their existence. This microscopic bullet is a piece of a dead star's heart, and it is governed by a set of physical laws that find the concept of aerodynamics to be a quaint, low-energy superstition. It does not burn up because there is nothing in our sky capable of damaging its perfect subatomic structure, making its descent toward the surface a silent, inevitable mathematical certainty. When a strangelet makes contact with the surface of the water, there is no majestic splash or white-cap spray to mark the beginning of the end of the world. It enters the ocean with a clinical, surgical precision, sinking toward the abyss at thousands of miles per hour because the buoyancy of the Pacific is a joke to a particle that weighs millions of tons. As it descends, the handshake begins. A term we use for the moment, the strangelet's stable quark structure touches the first vulnerable water molecule and suggests a more efficient way of being. The hydrogen and oxygen atoms do not just break apart. They surrender their fundamental identities, their nuclei dissolving into a hot, strange soup that clings to the original seed and begins to grow. This is not a chemical reaction that you could put out with a fire extinguisher. It is a subatomic reformatting that turns the trail behind the sinking strangelet into a line of infectious, hyper-dense sludge. By the time the seed reaches the silt of the Mariana Trench, it has already converted several tons of seawater into a predatory version of itself that is hungry for the rest of the planet. The moment the strangelet reaches the Earth's crust, the timeline for your continued existence transitions from speculative to terminal with the cold efficiency of a bank foreclosure. It does not stop at the seabed. It continues to fall through the rock and the mantle, driven by its own incredible density and the relentless pull of the Earth's center of gravity. As it bores toward the core, the conversion rate begins to accelerate exponentially because the pressure of the deep Earth provides the perfect environment for this subatomic viral outbreak to flourish. The iron and nickel of the outer core are the first major casualties, melting not from heat, but from the sheer structural logic of the strange matter's superior stability. You are currently standing on a crust that is technically already a hollow shell, a thin layer of ordinary matter that has not yet realized the foundations beneath it have been deleted and replaced by something much heavier. By the time you finish your next breath, the infection has reached the geometric center of the planet and is beginning to move outward in a perfect, expanding sphere of total digestion. You have spent your entire life believing that the Earth is a massive, solid object, but that is only because you do not understand how much of your world is actually just empty space. An atom is a ghost town. If the nucleus were the size of a peanut sitting in the middle of a Major League Baseball stadium, the electrons would be tiny gnats buzzing around the very top row of the nosebleed seats. Everything in between, the seats, the field, the air, is absolutely nothing, a vacuum that gives you the illusion of volume and solidity. Strange matter is the universe's way of admitting that this vacuum is a waste of resources and it proceeds to pack the peanuts together while throwing the rest of the stadium into the trash. As the conversion sphere moves through the mantle, it removes the empty from the Earth's atoms, causing the planet to lose its volume without losing a single gram of its mass. This is the volume-mass paradox in its most brutal form. The Earth is becoming more real by the second, and in doing so, it is leaving no room for you to stand. The physical sensation of the planet shrinking beneath your feet would be less like an earthquake and more like the floor simply ceasing to be a reliable concept. As the crust is pulled into the expanding, strange-let core, the circumference of the Earth begins to collapse at a significant fraction of the speed of sound, pulling the atmosphere down with it in a global, suffocating downdraft. The Pacific Ocean, once a vast expanse of blue, is swallowed into a tiny, hyper-dense drain in the center of the world, disappearing in a matter of minutes as its molecules are compressed into the new, strange state. Skyscrapers, mountains, and the very air you're trying to breathe are all being dragged toward a single point of infinite density that is rapidly approaching from below. There is no way to run because the very geometry of the planet is folding in on itself, turning a 12,000-kilometer sphere into a cramped, airless graveyard. Your house, your city, and your entire history are being edited down into a more concise, more stable version of reality that does not include your participation. This process of total planetary digestion is not a quiet affair. It is a violent release of every bit of binding energy that was ever stored in the Earth's atomic structure. E=mc² is the universe's most unforgiving debt collector, and as the ordinary matter collapses into the strange state, it cashes out its energy reserves in a burst of terrifying, blinding radiation. The Earth does not just shrink. It screams in the ultraviolet and X-ray spectrums, glowing with a brilliance that would make the sun look like a flickering candle in a hurricane. For a few brief, horrific minutes, our planet becomes a strange star, a tiny, white-hot point of perfection that is visible from the other side of the galaxy as a sudden, sharp spike in the local light curve. The heat generated by this conversion is enough to vaporize anything that has not been turned into strange matter yet, ensuring that the transition from a living world to a dead pebble is as sterile as a surgical theater. This is the light of 1 billion years of evolution being burned off as waste heat, the final thermal byproduct of a planet finally reaching its most efficient form. When the light finally fades and the radiation levels begin to drop, what remains is a sphere about the size of a large American football stadium, roughly 200 meters in diameter. This tiny, gray-black pebble still weighs 6 sextillion tons, but has finally achieved the peace of the ground state, a uniform lump of strange quarks that will never change again. There are no continents, no weather patterns, and no biological residue. Every person who ever lived and every dream they ever had is now part of a single, perfectly dense lattice of subatomic perfection. It is a monument to the universe's hatred of complexity, a silent, heavy reminder that life was just a high-energy fever dream that the cosmos has finally recovered from. The Earth is no longer a planet. It is a strange-let of planetary mass, a cold and indifferent object that has no more use for the sun's warmth or the moon's tides. This is the ultimate destination of the perfect poison, a state of being where nothing happens because nothing needs to happen ever again. The solar system does not stop to mourn the loss of its third jewel. It simply adjusts its math and continues its cold, mechanical dance around the galactic center. The moon is still there, locked in its familiar orbit, but it is now circling a ghost, a tiny, invisible point of light that still exerts the same gravitational pull as the world it used to know. To the rest of the planets, nothing has changed because gravity only cares about how much you weigh, not how much space you take up or how many poems you've written. The orbits of Mars and Venus remain undisturbed, their paths carved by the mass of a stadium-sized pebble that used to be a home for 7 billion people. The silence that follows is absolute, a cosmic all-clear signal that indicates the local infection has been successfully contained and the matter has been properly recycled. We are gone, replaced by a silent, dense survivor that will drift through the dark for the next trillion years, waiting for the next thing to touch it and learn the truth. The stars are not ignoring us. They are likely just the cold, dense remains of civilizations that finally figured out how to stop making mistakes. We have spent decades broadcasting radio waves into the void, waiting for a greeting that will never come, because the universe has a very efficient way of silencing loud, messy biological systems. This is the most clinical explanation for the Fermi paradox. The great filter is not a wall we have to climb, but a basement we are all eventually invited to fall into. Every advanced society eventually reaches a level of technological maturity where they begin to play with the fundamental building blocks of reality, and that is usually the moment the cleanup crew arrives. It only takes one ambitious researcher or one stray cosmic ray hitting a high-energy experiment to trigger the phase transition that turns a thriving solar system into a collection of silent, stadium-sized pebbles. The silence is not a mystery. It has the sound of a perfectly optimized vacuum where nothing is allowed to be unstable anymore. There is a specific kind of arrogance in the way we build particle accelerators to smash atoms together, hoping to find a deeper truth about our origins. We are essentially poking a sleeping predator with a very expensive stick, unaware that the truth we are looking for is a state of matter that finds our existence to be a structural error. If a civilization survives long enough to master the energy of their star, they inevitably create the conditions necessary to forge a strangelet, inadvertently starting the subatomic zombie plague that deletes their history in a matter of hours. This would explain why we do not see galactic empires or massive engineering projects in the deep sky. The moment a species becomes interesting enough to be noticed, they become efficient enough to be digested. We are not looking at a vast, empty wilderness when we stare at the night sky. We are looking at a graveyard where every missing alien race has been compressed into a single, dense point of perfect matter. Your current state of messy, carbon-based complexity is a rare, fleeting privilege that the universe is actively trying to revoke with every passing second. This perspective reframes the greatest mystery in modern astrophysics, the problem of dark matter, as a simple matter of cosmic waste management. We see the gravitational effects of massive amounts of invisible material holding galaxies together, and we invent exotic particles to explain it, but the answer might be much more domestic and depressing. Dark matter is not some mysterious new field of physics. It is likely the trillions of tons of strange matter debris left behind by every star, planet, and civilization that has already undergone the upgrade. These strange blobs do not emit light. They do not interact with chemistry, and they do not care about our telescopes. They just sit there in the dark, providing the gravitational backbone for a universe that has already been mostly cleaned. We are living in the few remaining pockets of dirty matter, the high-energy dust bunnies hiding in the corners of a room that has already been vacuumed. The universe is not mostly empty. It is mostly finished, and we are just the stubborn stains that the industrial strength solvent has not reached yet. Take a moment to look at your own hands and realize that the only reason they can move, feel, or hold a phone is because the atoms inside them are fundamentally broken. Your biology relies on the fact that your chemistry is inefficient, leaky, and prone to constant chaotic change. If your atoms were perfect, they would not bond with oxygen, they would not form complex proteins, and they certainly would not support the electrical hallucinations you call your personality. You are a high-energy glitch, a localized pocket of entropy that is currently winning a temporary fight against the inevitable pull of the ground state. Every thought you have is a byproduct of a system that is constantly wasting heat and losing information, a frantic dance on the edge of a subatomic cliff. The perfection of strange matter is the ultimate enemy of life, because perfection has no room for the errors that we call art, love, or curiosity. You're only alive because the universe is currently failing to be efficient in your specific coordinate of space-time. We tend to romanticize our place in the cosmos, calling ourselves stardust, as if that makes us special or sacred. But a pathologist sees us as a structural instability that needs to be corrected. The universe does not want you to be a person. It wants you to be a uniform, low-energy lump of quarks that does not require any further maintenance. Life is a metabolic tax that the universe is tired of paying, a complex arrangement of particles that is far too expensive to keep on the books for more than a few billion years. This is the molecular claustrophobia of our existence, the realization that everything we value is built on a foundation of bad physics that is waiting for a good reason to collapse. Our instability is the only thing that allows for the passage of time and the existence of change. Without our imperfection, the universe would just be a static, silent photo of a graveyard. We are the noise in a system that craves absolute silence, and the silence is slowly but surely winning the argument. You should probably enjoy the sensation of your heart beating and your lungs expanding while your atoms are still allowed to be this inefficient and disorganized. This strange upgrade is not a choice you get to make, and it will not feel like a tragedy when it happens. It will feel like nothing at all, because the you part of the equation is the first thing that gets deleted during the optimization process. We are currently drifting through a cosmic shooting gallery where the bullets are invisible, hyper-dense, and perfectly patient, and we have no way of knowing how close the next one is. This is not a call to action or a plea for scientific funding. It is a clinical observation that your reality is a temporary loan with an undisclosed expiration date. The clock is not ticking in years or seconds. It is ticking in the probability of a single subatomic handshake occurring in our atmosphere. You are a beautiful, high-energy mistake, a vibrating house of cards that the universe is currently ignoring. So you might as well appreciate the view before the floor decides to become a stadium-sized pebble. When the end comes, it will not be a dramatic war or a slow fade into the heat death of the sun. It will be a sudden, cold realization that the ground state has finally arrived to collect its debt. The stars will continue to shine, the galaxies will continue to rotate, and the laws of physics will finally be satisfied that the biological error on the third planet has been successfully resolved. There is no way to leave a message behind when the very atoms of your monuments are converted into the same gray, strange goo as your bones and your books. We are the cosmic equivalent of a fever, a temporary spike in temperature that the universe is currently sweating out until the system returns to its natural cold equilibrium. Your skin is still warm, your brain is still firing, and your atoms are still wrong, which is the only form of luck that actually matters in this clinical, indifferent void. Look at your hands one last time and understand that they are currently a miracle of structural failure, a brief and frantic vibration in a universe that is waiting for you to finally hold your breath and become perfect.